Hello there, moin moin ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another IEM review. And today for you I have another IEM you probably have never heard of, the Xinhs HS80. Yes, after I have checked out the HS10, which, let's say it friendly, wasn't the greatest, and the Phoenixia, which was actually really good. Now we check out their current flagship offering, the 2DD and 6BA. And yeah, we discuss what this thing can't do. First, packaging and accessories. That's its packaging. Yes, it just came in a small bubble wrap packed in its carrying case. And as accessories, we get the cable, which we talk about next, and 3 set of ear tips, which are exactly the same in terms of material and outlet diameter. So I'm not entirely sure why we get 3 sets of the same ear tip basically. At least to me, they feel like they have the exact same squishiness, they look like they have the same material thickness, and the outlet diameter definitively is the same. So this is kind of useless to have 3 sets of tips that are basically identical. Like, why do that? And other than that, I mean, yeah, there's no real packaging here, that's it. And the carrying case itself, though, while being pretty decent, as you can see, not the most squishy, relatively sturdy. The zipper is going smooth enough. Some of the corners here are not the smoothest, like this one, but it's totally fine. And the net on top is big enough to hold the cable or some other accessories, that is nice. It also doesn't feel premium, like I have had cases for cheap IEMs that definitely felt better than this. So overall, definitively a bit lackluster for the price point. And speaking of lackluster, let's continue exactly that with the cable here. This IEM clocks in at, I think, $280 or something like that. And this is exactly the same cable that you get with the HS10. The only difference here is I got Pentacon, while the HS10 came with 3.5mm. But other than that, it's basically the same cable. And while this cable is not bad, I won't go too much in detail here because it's literally exactly the same at HS10. So it's smooth usable, it doesn't really lag at any point. But for $280, I mean, shouldn't this be a better cable out of the box? And the cable that this IEM is on here, unfortunately I can't rate as together with the IEM, because after I complained with the HS10, they sent me a quote nice cable with the HS80 when I bought this. So this you probably will not be getting. And to be fair, this cable is really good, I really like it, but it just doesn't come with the IEM, so I can only rate what I have, and this is this, and for the price, it's just not good enough. So, then coming to IEM Build though, and I think this is then one of the strong points, at least in my books, because this IEM is very well built. Let me remove it from its cable here, and just get the IEM itself in the picture. So, in real life, I'm not sure how well the camera is capturing it. It looks really nice. The swirls in here are kind of 3-dimensional. There's some depth to it. And it does look really cool to look at in real life. And because this is a semi-custom shell IEM with like no real complaints overall, I can already give you a verdict here. Like, it also feels nicely made and it fits nicely maybe later on. And yeah, but the build is basically the same as with the HS10. That means you have this small metal inlet to protect from bigger particles. I wish there would be a mesh still beneath, but okay, at least it's not the biggest hole. Non-color match 2-pin connector here in this case. I mean, not a big deal at all. And other than that, there isn't much to say here. You can see it has 3 sound tubes at the front, and yeah, it just does the job just fine overall. And yeah, it feels well built in my hand. One thing what I want to say though, I really dig this optics of this frosted, like semi-transparent optic where you can see the insides just barely. And I don't think my camera can capture it well enough, but in real life you can see the insides just a bit. And it's really cool to have. In direct comparison to the HS10, I think the really transparent one is still a bit cooler, but this is definitively up there in terms of optics. I really like it. And yeah, build, as I said, is well done. It's just not better than the HS10 for, I mean, this costs how much more? Like 3 times the price. So, I mean, you don't get 3 times more, basically get identical in terms of build. Comfort and fit on the other hand though, you can see this is definitely a bigger IEM overall. There's nothing about this small. The contouring is also a bit more on the aggressive side. So if you have small ears or some not average shaped ears, this could be a bit of a problem. But for me, with my average sized outer ear and small ear canals, this worked really nicely. The nozzle is a bit smaller than the HS10, it's a bit difficult to see on video here, but in the measurements you will see it in the background, and this meant it really nicely fit my ear overall. I literally could wear this for hours on end without any complaints whatsoever. And yeah, really, this is one of the strong suits, I would say, of the HS80 here. Very well done in terms of comfort. Semi-custom shell, yes, a bit more aggressively contoured, but the nozzle isn't too long, it isn't too wide, so generally leads to a very good comfort overall. And isolation, I mean, yeah, again, semi-custom shell, a bit on the bigger side, a bit more dense. That means it does isolate above average. I would say similar to the HS10, so definitively enough for all situations in day-to-day life. If you are on busy traffic roads or somewhere else where it's really loud, you might want to opt for foam tips, but even with silicone tips, honestly, I was totally fine with this IEM. Drivability, unfortunately, Xinhs does not provide me, or does provide us on the product page with impedance rating here. So I can only go by ear, and by ear I can tell you, this is pretty damn efficient. I would guess it's probably in the realm of like maybe 12 to 16 ohms, something like that, with about 100 decibels of sensitivity. So really on the Apple dongle, it turned really loud, and I didn't have any problems in terms of, yeah, overall drivability. So I gave it 85% on the Apple dongle, basically upping the power a bit to something like the Up 5 here or something similar with like, in balance, this has I think 250 milliwatts. I think it improved a bit on staging and bass presence or bass impact, but it's so minor, really you don't need it at all. So don't worry about it, this can be driven off basically anything. And next we come to the star of the show, general sound characteristics or tone. And I have a front view measurements now, and what the hell is going on here again, Xinhs? The HS10, I could at least see what it attempted to be. It tried to be Harman, just was way too bright in the treble, but one single filter brought it to exactly Harman tuning, which is, again, I like it, so no problem for me. But this thing here, I can't tell you what it's supposed to be. It's very oddly V-shaped, where the treble bleeds into the mids massively, the bass bleeds a bit into the mids, and there's kind of an odd dip that I haven't seen in any other V-shaped IEM so far. It's really one of those cases where I just don't know what the intention with this is. But unlike the HS10, where I couldn't listen to it, where I really was like, this is so bad, I just can't give it a full review. This one actually does sound competent. Again, it doesn't sound good, and the graph is not lying in terms of the bleeding here. But this extends to 20K. That means you do have upper treble going on. That also means you do have nice trailing ends and nice leading edges. And it does sound fairly detailed, absolutely does. So that means generally this comes off as detailed sounding to my ear. And I did like it in most of my tracks, if EQ'd. More about that later on. I think some people will probably still complain that the treble might not be enough for them, upper treble I mean, but for me honestly this was totally fine here. And I think this is a 9.3K peak here, it's not too strongly pronounced out of the box, and it's not a strong resonance peak, so you could also EQ it if you like, and I really had no problems with the upper treble representation here. Mid-Treble though is a bit of a different story. Without EQ there's an 8K peak, and that resolves as such to my ear, and that means it's sibilant, it's a bit unpleasant, and it does mean to S and F being pronounced way more than it should. And unfortunately I couldn't even fix this with ear tips. I tried the Velvet, the Omni, the Liquid Silicone, the Max, and a few other tips, and nothing really worked in fixing the 8K peak. So this to my ear resolves as such and is not really pleasant at all. Combined with the dip at 6K, that is a really strong dip. I mean, at best we can describe this as unique treble tuning, but this dip should be more in the around 8K region to my ear. And yeah, I mean, this is not that great. Lower treble though, you can see there's a 4.5K peak, and fortunately this does not resolve on 5K to my ear. That means it's not uncomfortable. But together with the dip and the plateau before that and then the weird 8K peak, it's not a good treble tonality at all. And that brings me to the mids, and I mean, you can see how the treble bleeds into the mids, and this leads to one of the wonkiest tonalities for the mids I have heard in a long time. It sounds like somebody's constantly shouting in your ear. Doesn't matter how quiet you go, it's always shouting in your that goddamn ear, and I can't unhear it. It's there in every track, and it doesn't normalize. Even after a few hours of listening, I still hear the shout. It's really unpleasant. And you mean combined with that, well, you can see the dip is also in a weird place, and that means also the bass bleeds a bit into it, and overall, I don't know, it just sounds so strange. It sounds recessed, but it also sounds a bit forward at the same time, and it just makes it overall the kind of honky sounding, like really, really weird overall tonality. If you're only after female vocals though, you can see these are pretty forward, and that means they have a good clarity. It's the best thing I can say about the upper mids here, but even then it's shouty, and I wouldn't particularly recommend it. And it brings me to the bass, and I mean, you can see the graph, it isn't tight, it isn't really controlled, it isn't really that punchy. The Phoenix here, which is definitively way cheaper than this, is definitively better bass performer overall, better tonality and better technicality even. So this doesn't really rumble that much, and it doesn't even give you the really meaty bass that the Relentless has. And I think in the background I will probably have shown you the Relentless a few times as comparison, because if you are after V-shaped, I think Relentless is a good example of a good V-shaped tuned IEM. Sure, this is not for everybody, and it's not for me either, but if you want something V-shaped, Relentless does it well, while this one just doesn't. It's just, the bass is just not as meaty as it's supposed to be while measuring like that. And I think a good example for this is, or not example, the reason for this is how the treble bleeds into the mids. It just doesn't come off as this meaty as it measures here. Sub bass, though, it's a solid performer. It's not great, it's not bad. It's 2.14 minutes in my Interstellar's Mountains. We have a bass drop starts at like 2 minutes 10 and rolls all the way to 20 Hz at 2 minutes 16. So 2 minutes 14 is about average. It's not great, it's not bad, it's just pretty average. Other technicalities, soundstage, layering and imaging, and thankfully not everything is bad, even with the stock tuning that it has here. You do have a decent stage, you most of the time have 5 layers, and it images fairly well, so even with its stock tuning, you can play competitive games with this. I wouldn't want to, honestly, because it takes a bit of time to get used to, but I played Sandstorm, and it worked totally fine with this one. Like, it took just a bit of getting used to, and then it was absolutely fine. But I wouldn't recommend you playing it with it. Like, with EQ, I think the imaging still gets a tad better, but out of the box, it still images and stages well. So, yeah, about that. And then separation, dynamics, and coherence. And again, you notice the drivers here are competent overall. And that means, yeah, there is a pretty decent separation going on. And even the dynamics for a hybrid set that uses VAs for basically mids and treble actually were really good. I did have the feeling when it was supposed to be quiet, it was really quiet. When it's supposed to be loud, it was loud. And that meaning overall, it did have a nice feeling of micro details and macro details at the same time. And the coherence, well, I mean, it isn't as bad as you expect with the tuning that it has here, but there is some BA timbre going on, and I'm pretty sure if you're more sensitive to BA timbre, you will hear it. I'm not that sensitive to it, so it's less pronounced than I expected, I want to say. And then let's talk about EQ. And I mean, my summary here is basically, it is good with EQ, it sounds very good with EQ, but is it worth it? I've spent approximately 30 or 40 minutes, give or take, to get this to a tuning that is at least somewhat competent without destroying the character of this IEM. So I try to keep the treble mostly intact, slightly tweaking it here and there and just fixing the mids basically. And with that, yeah, it took me, I think, 8 or 9 filters, so it took a long while to get this to sound right. But if I had it like that, you notice these drivers are competent. The actual two-way crossover is well done. There is Upper-Treble going on. The bass is not too slow. It can be tactile. It can be focused if you EQ it right. And with that, I really enjoyed the Xinhs HS80. It's just the case, it took me 8 filters or more to get this to sound right. Is it worth it? I'm not sure, honestly. I like the comfort, and that brings me to a verdict. I like the comfort, I like the optics, I like the build. The cable they provided me with, which will not be included in this review because that's unfair, is really nice. And with EQ, it sounds really good. But without EQ, it's one of those things I don't understand what happened here. I really don't. I have exchanged with a few other people about this IEM, and one of them actually builds his own IEMs, and he was like, here's the feeling the bass drivers are out of phase. There's something weird going on. This is not supposed to be like this. And the problem with this interpretation is both sides here measure very similarly. The channel matching is well done overall. So I'm pretty sure this is how it's supposed to be, and it's just so bad. It's one of those tunings I don't understand like why this measures as is. I'm not sure if I said it in my unboxing, but with this IEM, I actually double checked that piece was out, so my EQ software. I double checked nothing was active. I actually activated and deactivated it again, and then choose an EQ filter that had nothing set, just in case something was going on. But that's how it is. It just measures this badly, and it sounds this honky and this is weird. So yeah, I mean, it has good text and it looks nice and it fits well. It's just with the overall packaging, with the free tips that are exactly the same, the cable that is not price appropriate, and this tuning, I can only recommend you stay away from this. This is not a good IEM, and I really wish they would take note from the Xinhs. The treble that it has here, with the mid-tonality of the Xinhs, without the bleed, would be really good. This would be one of those IEMs where I would be like, okay, the 6K dip is not for everybody, probably it's not for me either, but you can live with it. It's a unique characteristics this IEM would have, and the plateau before that also, I mean, yeah, EQ'd, I kept it there, and it does sound good. It's not my favorite, but it does sound good. In my EQ profile, again, let me show you how it measures with EQ. I really like this IEM with EQ. But I can't rate an IEM based on EQ. So again, I will recommend you to stay away from it. And yeah, I hope they do make a more competent IEM next time. But Xinhs, if you just want something that measures well, but also looks kind of cool, has a better cable with it, Xinhs is good. I would tell you go for Xinhs if you want something that is a bit more brightish treble, but pretty good overall. Xinhs, not HS80. Okay, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Questions, recommendations, or criticisms, please leave a comment. Donspektor out.